6. Okay.
There's 3 here at the meeting or at the room.
Yeah. 3 of us on. Fred's on.
Who's there in the room besides Dave?
Sarah and Ian.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I guess I should have turned around.
It's hard to look at all like 9 places.
Yeah, you're good to go then.
All right. Do we want to go ahead and call the meeting to order? It's 6:32 by my watch. We'll start off with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
God,
under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all. All righty, and I see Dennis has just joined us as well. I don't think we have any. Do we have?
Yes.
All right, there's Dennis. Hello, sir.
Hello.
All righty. Approval of meeting minutes from October 10th. Do I have a motion for that?
So move, Dave Kraus.
Okay, Dave's moved. And do I have a second?
Sarah?
Sarah? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Meeting minutes are approved.
Katie, do
On
you want to make the announcement about the proceedings being recorded just for posterity?
Sure thing. Anyone who is joining us, this portions of this meeting are being dual broadcast via Zoom, but the meetings are recorded so that we have the ability to take notes from the meeting and make the meeting minutes. And I don't think we have anybody but advisory board and participants on the call, but just in case anyone's watching from Facebook or other places, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Miss Anna, overview of submitted applications.
We got 2 applications this pilot grant round, which is really awesome. They're both really great projects. So this first one is a conservation easement from Wildlands Conservancy. It's just off of Route 903. The property is adjacent to Interstate 476. And the county grant request is for $499,089. They have matching grant commitments of $800,000 from Open Space Institute and donation land value of $375,000.
Wow.
This is the project description. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but the conservation easement is for 1,187 acres in the Lehighton Water Authority property. So it's the Pine Run stream area. The area, like the land, will be open to hiking and hunting. I still need to find out if it's available for biking. I'm not totally sure about that, but I'm gonna call them and check, and then that would be something else we would talk about. But this is a map of the property. So that outline in purple, Dawn calls it the t-shirt, is the conservation. All of the green is some of the Lehighton Water Authority property. And then that little red square is the parking area. It just goes off of that public access trail. The trail is just like dirt and grass. It will get muddy when it's rainy. But yeah, that's one of the applications. I am doing these in alphabetical order, just so everyone knows.
Hey, excuse me, Anna. Can we get copies of this or no?
Yeah, I can send these to you guys tomorrow, and then when it does come time to rank, I'm gonna send you a copy of this with more information, like their answers to the project selection criteria, and that's what you guys will get to start your rankings, and I'll mail those or email those out a good while before the December meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So that is the first application. If you want to go to the second one. This is the other application. It's a land acquisition that would be in addition to State Game Lands number 217, which is in East Penn Township. And this application was submitted by Natural Lands. It's on the north side of Hoffman Road at the west intersection with Bake Oven Knob. The county grant request is for $184,000. Sorry, I said that wrong. It's late. And then they have a matching grant for $319,666 dollars from the PA Game Commission. So the total project cost is $500,450. This one is for 72 acres. And the Natural Lands has the agreement of sale from the Game Commission. And then if you look at the map, the yellow is Hoffman Road, and it goes to Big Oven Knob Road. That road is all gravel. And then the little orange square is the parking area. It's just a little gravel parking lot. There aren't really any trails in here, but you will be able to hunt and hike if you wanted to, even though there's not a trail. And if you look in the northwest corner of the property, there is a small tributary of Lizard Creek, which does attach to like the greater Lizard Creek. So those are the two main projects. I can send you all these tomorrow. I probably should have done that, but these 2 pages will also be a part of the fact sheet that I send out before we do rankings, so you guys can get a better gist of the projects. And that'll have some more pictures of the places too. Does anyone have any questions about these two? Anything you're wondering?
Go ahead. I have a question about the first one, and I'm not sure who would address that, but since this land has been maintained for over 100 years by the Water Authority, what are the advantages and disadvantages? I mean, for us spending money to maintain it, if it's already going to be maintained, or is there a threat to this possibility of Lehighton selling that property, which I can't imagine them doing, but Dennis, or can you shed some light on that, or just?
Well, that information is included in the actual grant narrative. I can speak to it a little now if you want, but all of this is in the narrative in the questions. But so the Lehighton Water Authority land, even though they've had it for 100 years, it's not permanently protected. Some of it is. I submitted a map that shows areas of it that are permanently protected, and this feels like a gap in the permanent protection. And just because it has been protected all this time, because it doesn't have any sort of permanent protection, there's not an immediate threat of it being sold or developed, but there's no guarantee that couldn't happen in the future.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's kind of what I was looking for.
Yeah, the key is the word permanent. When we look at large forested lands in Carbon County, Lehighton Water Authority owns 3,600 acres, and about 1,000 of that is already protected through what Don mentioned, which was Project 70, which was $70 million that the state allocated many years ago, that the authority helped acquire this land. But we're in the business of permanently protecting. and for I know it's a bit of a gray area with water authorities because they'll want to protect it, but as we know historically, uh, surface water, and probably 30, 40 years ago, the issue of giardias bacteria, that a lot of water authorities went to deep artesian wells. And so there is always a possibility, if an authority is cash strapped, that they would be able to sell off one or more parcels. And so, because we're in the forever business, we want to permanently protect this first phase of water authority land, which is the Pine Run Cove at the Pocono Plateau, the ridge and the slope, and it is a high conservation value area that we want to lock in permanently.
Thanks, Dennis.
I have a question. So is there currently hiking and hunting on this property? Is that
It-
happening now?
It is, yes, it is open to the public right now.
Okay.
And actually, when Anna and I were on it the other day, we saw some hunters coming out of the hiking out of the property as we were hiking in, carrying their fake deer.
And we're wearing orange.
For some reason, I thought that hunting wasn't allowed on that, but hey, I guess I was wrong. So
There where Richard is?
Maybe.
So will we run afoul with the roadway that's going through there? Like if there's any major construction, will that disrupt what all we're looking to conserve, or is that the carve out that we have enough that we don't have a disruption?
You mean the I-476?
Yeah, if there's major changes in there or a reroute, are we too close to it in terms of what we're trying to preserve, and that we get screwed when they make changes?
Well, unfortunately, there's I think right now there's give on either side, because it's not, I mean, it's not, and the I-476, they own that in the center. It's not like an
Okay.
easement or anything. So
Yeah.
there's space on each side, but I mean, anywhere, any roadway could decide that they need to expand, and in the future, then if there's easements on adjacent properties, they have to deal with those adjacent property owners to work out what the best case scenario is for a property like that. And that happens, you know, when like new power lines go through places, new roadways, expansion of roadways. Whenever they're going through protected land, either we try to get them to avoid going through protected land, but alternately we try and find like the best outcome of how that would work, whether that is them getting extra land or them you know, returning the land once they've disturbed it to what it was, sort of thing. So
Yeah, and Katie, if I understand your question, just the interstate or Turnpike 476 just happens to cut through it, and with the Mahoning Valley exit, and then the new 903 first Pocono exit, which took probably 30 or 40 years to get approved. And I was involved in that over the years in Carbon County. The chances of there being any kind of disturbance between Mahoning Valley and the 903 slip ramp is slim to none.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure we weren't, you know, we weren't biting off places that we were set to lose, you know, through no fault of our own and you know, future road planning.
Yeah, I got one quick question here. Looking at the turnpike running up the middle there. So I noticed that the public access trail for the west side. I'm curious how the parcel is accessed on the east side. Is there like a path underneath the turnpike? Yeah, what's the access point there?
Well, I don't know if there's necessarily an access point. The property is also adjacent to a conservation easement on Bethlehem Water Authority as well, which you'll see in one of the maps that I submitted. And I guess, yes, the answer to this question is yes, there's public access. There are some existing trails on the property, but it's not, it's not like every property. It's not like fully 100% accessible, that there's trails everywhere. So I would guess that it's possible to access the other side. Hunters, I sometimes see them pulled off on the side of the road. I don't know if I've ever seen them pulled off on the side of the turnpike, although I may have. But in theory, I mean, if there's public access on the Bethlehem Water Authority property, which I'm not sure if there is or not, you could probably get there from here. It'd just be a really long walk.
I don't think there is. That's why I was confused with this, because I'm pretty sure Bethlehem Water Authority, it's like gated
Well,
in a lot of the areas.
yes, and Dave, that's a good question. On that, I live off of where Green and Forest meet, so Green Street, that goes back to the Water Authority dams, and there is a fence to keep vehicles out. But as us locals know, there's access to walk onto the property. There's an old wagon road that goes up along the slope of the Pocono Plateau, and that may be something that would have to be addressed as far as having clearer access. But
Well, I think the other important thing to remember is that part of the ranking, there's the question about access, and but it's not a requirement. And the point of this is to make sure that we're protecting the habitat and the water, those primary things, and the public access was a secondary, not required thing. And it's somewhat unusual with a conservation easement. It's always tricky with the public access when you're doing an easement, but this just happens to already be open to the public. But I can imagine that if it became an issue in the future, if there was a worry about the water supply, that there might be more restrictions on the access. But it is, it does have access now. And like I said, we saw hunters out there. And I'd just like to say that Anna and I we really wanted to get down to see the water, and we finally found a way down. And if she wants to pull those pictures back up again, it was absolutely gorgeous. It was like a fairyland.
What I called it. Yeah. That's what that middle picture is. That's the fairyland.
Oh, cool.
That's the name of my farm.
And there is a culvert under the turnpike that is large enough to walk through, which I've done many times.
Well, if we get it conserved, maybe we can petition the turnpike for a natural habitat bridge. Get some of that kind of stuff going.
It's an amazing property.
Well, it looks like these folks done their homework.
So since it's been under Lehighton Water Authority, have they kind of followed any best forest management practices? Like, is there any going to be noxious weed problems? I'm just thinking, since we don't have that part of the questionnaire, is there anything that are hindrance issues with this property?
We didn't see any when Anna and I were out there. We didn't see any invasives. And I think in my application, I talked about that as well. Talked about what's out there in terms of trees and what's not out there in terms of invasives. And when we went out for the appraisal, we were with a forester. So
And
because it's
cool.
A lot of times with our appraisals, sometimes with our appraisals, we'll have a forester because we're looking, they'll be looking at the timber value to see if there's a timber value that they need to incorporate into the appraisal or not. So we were out on the property with a forester when we did the appraisal.
And it
When you
include-
mentioned that about the forester, I mean, do they have a forestry management plan already? I'm sure they do on this property.
I'm not sure, but the easement kind of puts bounds around what they can do from a forestry standpoint. It has to be sustainable forestry. The easement will talk about, you know, what they can and can't do. And it also, any forestry plans would need to be approved by wildlands. They do have I think a test cut that they're doing within the next year. But I wasn't at their meeting when they decided on that, so I don't know kind of what the goal of that was. But that's something that was pre-existing, and only if it affects this area at all, it's at the very top, so it's not, you know, over the whole area. So I mean, I guess that's another reason for you know, the easement puts, I guess, stronger restrictions on the type of forestry. But I would say that, you know, as a water authority, their goal is to protect the water. So any sort of forestry they're going to do is going to be, you know, with that in mind. It's not going to be forestry to make money. It's going to be forestry to make the forest healthier and to protect the water.
Right.
So there are two matching grant commitments with this one?
So this one is a bargain sale, first off. And then secondarily, we do have a grant award.
Well, you have 800,000 Open Space Institute and 375 bargain sale.
Yes.
I don't understand either one of those terms.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So, and again, this is described better in the application, but so we have a grant, we applied to the Open Space Institute for a grant, and we were awarded $800,000. Obviously, we don't have, once this moves forward and we have all the matching, then when we go to closing, they'll give us that money. But we have a grant award from the Open Space Institute for $800,000, and then of the cost of the value of the easement, we're not paying the full value for the easement. So that's what's called a bargain sale. So the easement value, I think, is $1,425,000, but we're paying $1,050,000. So that is a bargain sale of $375,000. So that is considered matching funds when you're working on grant stuff. So when you are able to get something at less than its value, you can count that difference as matching towards the whole project.
Did,
That's just
Dawn,
based on the assessment. It's not getting discounted by the water authority or.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, that's based on the assessment, or is it being discounted by the water authority?
Yeah, it's based on so the value is based on an appraisal, and the water authority, instead of taking the full value, I got them to agree to take less value.
Thank you.
And
So
that was
don't-
kind of, that's always a tricky thing that you're basing on how much money you think you can bring to the project and how much they want to make sure that the property's permanently protected. So you're weighing all those different things to try and come to the kind of the best position of being able to protect the property and also put some money in the landowner's pocket.
so Dawn, did you advise these people when you met with them, or, I mean, who in the heck came up with all these numbers and whatnot? Like, I mean, I'm just playing dumb here, okay? Like,
So,
how?
without getting into details of this specific project, generally, a land trust will work with a landowner. If they're interested in protecting their property and they're serious about it, we will get an appraisal. And in this case, we actually got a grant because a conservation easement appraisal of this size is somewhat expensive. So we got a grant from the Open Space Institute to cover the cost of the appraisal. So the land trust will get in many cases, the land trust will get an appraisal on the property. And then based on that appraisal, we'll kind of look at how much money do we think we can bring to the table with the different grant opportunities that are out there? And sometimes we can bring the full value to the table. Sometimes we can't. In this case, I didn't think we would be able to bring the full value to the table because of the different funding sources that are out there. And so you then go to the landowner with kind of an offer. This is what we think we can bring. Is this something that, would work for you? And then then if you get them to agree, then you put an agreement of sale together. And so we do have an agreement of sale on this.
Wow.
Dan,
Good
Dan-
action, real quick.
Dan, Dawn just summarized it, but this started 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just thinking like, wow, this is
because
like so detailed and right on, I'm thinking like, how the hell did this all happen?
It was a multi-year process where we met with them a number of times, talking about the different ways this could work, kind of seeing, and getting them familiar with what the process would be and what the easement is like. And eventually you get to the point where, and if you'll notice from the map, we're not of the t-shirt shaped property, as I call it. There's an area cut out. So that was the area that they had their engineers look at and decide that they didn't want an easement on that because they might need to expand some of their facilities in that area. So that was cut out of the easement.
Okay.
And
Okay,
so,
well,
yeah, like Dennis
makes
said, this
sense
is a
now.
many-year process to get to this point.
2 or 3 years of
I
negotiation.
was just thinking like, you got the matching grant commitment, you got all this stuff like so quick. Is that the same for the other applicant as well? Is that something that you folks were working with too, or?
I don't know if Anne wants to speak to that, or if you want me to just talk about it in more general terms.
Well, probably both. Jack Stepperud, who is the project manager and our senior land protection staff person, isn't here. We didn't know that applicants were attending the meeting, and Don's an advisor as well. But yes, now in this case, Natural Lands is applying on behalf of the State Game Commission. The state of Pennsylvania can't apply for their own funding. But when the Bureau of Forestry or the Game Commission wants to add land to state holdings, they call on a land trust to put the deal together. So we do outreach to the landowner. We put together a grant application, in this case, to the state of Pennsylvania, a little different division, Conservation and Natural Resources. And we needed to make up a gap, and we're asking for Carbon County to fill that gap. So we will initially take ownership, and then at closing, we instantly transfer to the Game Commission, and they expand their current land holdings. And this is a really incredible property. I personally haven't walked it, but Jack and several of our other staff have been there. It's in the view shed of the Appalachian Trail, and his application goes on to describe its merits.
And Anna has been there as well. Anna's been to both properties. And I think one of the things that we were going to talk about in a little bit was seeing if if we wanted to try and schedule a site visit with the advisory board members, realizing that it's, going to be difficult and not everybody would be able to go. But if maybe a couple of you were interested, we could try and schedule a time where we could go out and see both properties. Full disclosure, when Lehighton Water Authority property, the Pine Run, which I'm calling the Pine Run Conservation Easement, that is, it's a bit of a hike. So it's not just a parking lot on the side of the road and you can look at the property. You do have to kind of walk back in there to get a good look at it. But
over 1,000 acres.
Yeah. And Dana D, I think this is a great interaction and discussion because it shows the Wildlands Conservancy has been around for 50 years, and our focus has been the Kittatinny Ridge and the Blue Mountain. And if you probably look back historically, of all the land deals, Wildlands and Natural Lands and other conservancies did with the Game Commission to preserve the extent of the game lands that are on the Blue Mountain, it happened over 50 years. And so whenever it's kind of like we have our eyeballs out for any available forest land that may come available for sale that is adjacent to game lands or other protected lands. We're always looking for opportunity. So I don't know the year this started, but it was an opportunity that probably started years ago to get the landowner who would be willing to sell the property, work with the Game Commission, and put the deal together. So these deals are multi-year situations.
Thanks.
So what's the steps here? We get the full package and
Mhm.
or
Yeah,
do we
so
get site visit first, or what's the process?
that one will kind of depend. So the next thing I wanted to talk about tonight is a site visit. It gets dark pretty late now. So I don't know how that would work, and I know some people have jobs during the day. It gets dark early, sorry. But yeah, I would love to take some groups of you guys to both of these places either in one day or do separate groups to each one different days. Whatever works. I just want us to have like kind of a discussion about how we can do that. Or I could talk about how rankings in next month is gonna go too. But we'll do both of those tonight. Either one can come first.
I just have a question in regards to site visit with winter here, like around the corner. I don't think we're gonna be like trucking around in snow or ice, correct?
No, just while the weather holds off. If we get a lot of snow, tonight and tomorrow, we will have to wait for it to melt until we go check these places out.
Well,
And I won't drive on those roads with any snow around.
Yeah,
But-
the other thing to consider is that because it is hunting season,
Yeah,
and
that too.
and rifle season starts next week, that in theory, like we could do what Anna and I did, which we specifically decided to go in the middle of the day so that we would be less likely to run into hunters. So like I said, we saw hunters coming out, but there was nobody in there hunting because we went in the middle of the day. So we didn't go first thing in the morning or in the afternoon. So we picked the middle of the day. And then the alternate thing is that if we waited until the week, so if the rankings could be happening, she can send out the packets of information at any point. And in my mind, I wanted to make sure that I'd like to see you guys have at least 2 weeks with things, so you have plenty of time to look through the applications and come up with the rankings. But so the site visit doesn't necessarily have to come first. But I think the week of the next Open Space Advisory Board meeting, that week is the week between there's no hunting during that week. So in theory, you could go any time of the day, then not have to worry about hunting. But of course, you still also would have to worry about weather. So it's all going to be weather dependent. But just because both properties are I don't know how much hunting there is on the one on the ridge, but it's adjacent to game lands. So that's just something to keep in mind. And even no matter when we go out, everybody should be wearing orange. But either if it's going to be during hunting season, it should be with everybody wearing orange and maybe in the middle of the day, or it could be anytime during the day when there's light if we waited till that 1 week right before the meeting.
You know what the
We could
mile
do a
markers
group double duty.
in the turnpike?
We could do hunting party and go out for the visit.
I'm not sure what the mile markers are on the turnpike.
Where's that?
But if you look at a bigger map, you can see it's a couple miles down from the 903 slip ramp.
Yeah, if we had the exact mile markers from the start to the end, that would be a way to get a peek at of the property as well. Just running up from Lehighton to the
That's who we are.
903 exchange.
So how close is it? Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's who it is. That's that. That's Bear Creek, all of that.
You know, it's always good to get out and of course with the trees, with the leaves off, the canopy is clear. You can kind of see the landscape better.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought of this wild idea. Kind down the road, Carbon County would have a drone
Yep.
and could kind of fly around the property with us online. I mean, we do this with our easements.
A good biology project for a student.
and just get a great kind of view of the property from a drone.
Yeah, that's something that we could talk with our mapping department about. I'm not entirely
That's a
sure,
great
but they
idea.
might actually have one right now that they do use for certain things. So we'll get in touch with Jason Schellheimer and see what he has.
That's a great idea, actually.
And if they don't either, any of our state partners do as well, and they might be able to, work with us on it. Or, we talk to somebody who's an interested citizen party that wants to, be a part of the process. There's a lot of people that have them. So if we're willing to allow the help, then maybe we can do it that way.
I do feel like.
So, okay, so next step is possibly site visit, sending out the information for the applications for everybody to kind of review. I did have one question. I know that we were kind of expecting these in the pilot. Did we have any other folks inquire about the program?
Yes. We did.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there was another conservancy with a project in Weatherly, but they received all of their funding from the state and ended up not needing to apply to this program. And then we do also have a borough that was interested, and they just need a little more time to kind of decide what properties they would want to consider preserving and learn more about the whole process. But I'm going to direct them to Dawn to get some help just contextualizing everything. But I know that they'll work towards it, and they'll be at the municipalities workshop we have, I'm sure.
Excellent. That's really good news.
Yeah, and I just got an inquiry the other day, so that Dawn and I are
Good.
following up on. So it seems like the word is getting out, which is a good thing.
Are these other inquiries from different parts of the county as well?
Yes, yeah, they would all have to be in the county.
I mean, like different parts other than what we're looking at right here.
Yes, yeah, and I think what we're going to find is, I think we all know, have been around long enough to know, people have ideas, and they throw the idea at us, but it's not fleshed out, or they want somebody else to flesh it out for them. And so, we have to evaluate the quality of what idea is being thrown at us.
I don't know. So some of the, the two things that have been mentioned so far as potential future ones, depending on when the next grant round is, it's probably unlikely that they're going to be ready to go for that, because as Dennis mentioned, how, in both cases, in my case and Jack's case at Natural Lands, these aren't things that just started a couple months ago. These are things that started a year to 3 years ago. So sometimes projects can move a little more quickly, or if, sometimes if they're smaller, but generally, I think from the time a project gets on your radar to the time that you have it to a point where it's kind of ready to go and you're looking for funding, that could be, that's going to be quite a few months, probably 6 months at a minimum, maybe even more than that. So, I think that we're going to be lucky to get, it's certainly possible that we're going to get projects in the next round if there's one in the spring. but it's probably, again, more likely that they're going to come from land trusts that maybe already have something in the works. Or if there happens to be a municipality that has started thinking about this a while ago and maybe is a little bit further along, but it's going to take a little bit of time to ramp this up and have municipalities ready, you know, getting projects that are ready to go.
So I have a quick question. There is a farm that was recently preserved that has a portion of land that is attached to it. The whole property was already appraised together and the farm portion was parceled out. Isn't something like that like what we're looking for and is almost in the home stretch?
I don't know, Dave would have to speak more about exactly where that project is and if that person, you know, if there's a possibility there. I know that in other counties, there have been collaborations between the land preservation side and the ag preservation side. So a land trust would protect, you know, put an easement on the forested part of it, and the county would do the ag easement on the ag part.
I mean, I know when we were going through this whole process, that was brought up a few times, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
why it'd be a problem.
Yes, I believe there could be a nexus between both programs, and we rely on Dave and Anna that if they're working on a farm easement that has a number of acres of forested land, that we could overlap. I'm sure that will come up in the future, and those folks will be looking for that.
But I think we have it right now, is what I'm saying. I think we do have a situation like that.
Well,
And again, Dennis and I can't speak to that. I think Dave would have to speak.
That's why I'm
to-
asking Dave about it.
Yeah, I think there is definitely, I feel like there's probably some possibility for that, but I don't think we've gotten really dug into that yet, just because we wanted to get this process off the ground. Again, too, according to the farmland program and the way we set this program up, it could be done in the future. Without a doubt, I don't see any problem with that. But for right now, that wasn't one of the things that I think was focused on when we originally wrote the guidelines and everything. So we may have to look into that and adjust that as we move forward.
yeah, Fred, if you
That
have
would be a
specific-
similar,
I just thought that was a focal point at one point.
Well, Fred, if you have a specific project, I think it'd be best to talk to Dave offline. And again, a lot of this, as there's negotiation with landowners, it's you know, it should be done offline to see what the interest is.
yeah,
before
I was just gonna say that since it's not the landowner that would be applying for this, it would be, you know, unnatural lands or wildlands or, you know, whomever, they would have to have a negotiated something with an appropriate applicant. And I don't know if that's happened as part of this deal.
Yeah, and adding on to what Katie's also saying here too, with our farm program, you have the option to donate. When we take your farm, and if we don't take all the woodland because it doesn't qualify, you have the ability to donate that land into preservation. Here would be a case where the ag board is not involved, and it would be a property that would be bought. So obviously, going back to like what Katie said, you would need either like a land trust or a municipality to be the one who would go in to oversee the easement and make sure everything's done. That make any sense?
It makes perfect sense to me. Like I said, I just wanted to, when you have a willing party, whatever it is, cut down the road, if there's a willing party that's coming with a portion of farms, you know, and we have this up and going, I think it would be it would be important for us to give that landowner all options to save all of it per se. And I think that's with the shared money as well. I mean, it's hand in hand, I think.
You're right, Fred. It should be thrown out to the property owner as here's the options. Here's what we have in the toolbox that could add on to the ag part. And then the planning office would contact a conservancy to work with that person for an application on the forested portion, if I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, save on the administrative costs
Yeah,
too.
because I mean,
Time.
like I said, I mean, if they got the whole property appraised, I mean, isn't that a portion of, cost? I mean, that they would have to incur,
Mhm.
not incur twice.
Don't they just appraise the farmland, whatever they're putting in? They don't do the whole property, do they?
They appraise it, basically we get a farmland value with the market minus the agricultural. Yeah, usually I show them what's gonna be considered part of the easement. It's usually not, what's not, parts that aren't
Not a-
gonna be in there shown to them on a map.
Well, that can maybe be part of the, sort of where that happens, where there isn't an overlap point. This will be a, sort of lesson learned on the next entity that approaches these programs. To think about both ends of it at the same time. It's just like Dave said, getting some of this up and going was the first part, and we'll figure out how does that interact for next iterations.
I have a question on the appraisal cost, and it might be Don or Dennis might have a better idea, but if you just divide the numbers out, the large tract is roughly 420 an acre, and the smaller tract is 2,500 an acre. I mean, do those numbers just vary all over the place, depending on the
Well,
size?
one is a fee, so one you're buying the whole property, and the other is an easement and it's a bargain sale. And also generally the larger the property, there's economies of scale. So the larger property is usually going to be less per acre than a smaller property.
But are these numbers what you see on other projects? Are they going up? I mean, it really goes toward the kind of the appraisal side of things, but I'm just curious if where those numbers are and how we get a handle around the value.
I think you have to trust that you're requiring a professional appraiser to perform the evaluation. And
those appraisals
Yeah.
are generally based on comparables. So they're looking at other similar properties that have sold and what they sold for, and they're making adjustments based on the differences in the properties.
And I think we can say the larger tracts around $400 an acre is comparable.
Okay, thank you.
And these are appraisals that are issued by us, not the owner, to make sure.
Right. Yeah, you're the buyer, or so to speak.
And again, the easement value is completely different, and it's a different type of appraisal than a fee appraisal. Because a fee appraisal is just looking at the property and fees, but an easement appraisal is looking at it's basically doing a fee appraisal and then doing another appraisal of what would a similar property that's eased be valued at, and then it's subtracting the two numbers to come up with an easement value. So it's a little bit apples and oranges.
No, that's a great point. That's good information. Thank you.
Is there a number of years that the easement's for, or is it in perpetuity?
It's perpetual.
As long as the sun continues to rise.
What if we were in Alaska?
Rise eventually.
So Anna, I don't know if you how you want to proceed with kind of the site visit idea, if you're going to look at days and maybe send out ideas to the board and see who might be available when.
So what I was trying to say earlier was, I definitely feel that we should probably do this sooner than later. Because weather is unpredictable up here.
It's only gonna get colder,
For sure, and
more chance of snow sticking.
yeah, and I agree with what both you and Dawn said, and in the middle of the day is probably the best. And doing a wham bam and doing both, probably also the best.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
we don't
think
wanna. I mean, this one property, there's already public access. So I think that's sort of one of those things that we don't have to, do we have to let them know ahead? I mean, if it's public access already.
I don't know. You don't generally have to let them know, but I like to, when you're dealing with a landowner, I still like to let them know when I'm going out to look at the property for one reason or another.
I'm just saying in the case of the Lehighton Water Authority land.
Yeah, I mean, like in theory, in that case, anybody could go out whenever they wanted or whenever they had time, or we could go out as a group. If we went out as a group, that would be something where I would still want to let them know as the landowner, hey, we're taking a group out.
We would just email the office.
Yeah, that's just common courtesy.
Yep.
With the natural lands, the state game land edition, I did ask Jack, and if we're just gonna stay on the road, we can go anytime, we don't have to let them know. If we plan on going on the property, I would have to let the applicant know so that he can let their realtor know, just because. But yeah, if you guys want me to send you dates, if that would be better, I don't know if anyone has like a specific day of the week that would work best for them.
Completely flexible during the days,
Okay,
so you folks that are working.
yeah. If
And then the
anyone-
other thing I'd suggest, Anna, is that before, I think I mentioned before that I think that the board should have everything to look at for at least 2 weeks before the board meeting. But if the site visits happen before that, I would even say it would probably be good if they had all of the materials, the maps, the answers to the questions, even before they went on the site visit. So maybe even sooner rather than later, to sending out the application materials to the board.
Yeah, I don't think it will take me much longer to get the complete fact sheet together. I definitely think I could have that out to you guys by next week. For sure. And with that, I will give a fillable PDF. So you'll be able to save to your computer and put in your rankings into the paper, into the criteria evaluation, and bring that to the next meeting, and then we'll discuss everyone's rankings and how we want to average them
Save
and
a lot of time.
put them in. Yeah, so you guys will get all of that material, probably early next week. And you'll have it until the December meeting and before the site visits.
So the December meeting is December 19th.
Does anybody have a preference or a day that generally work better for?
I think my Fridays are freeing up until the end of the year. And Saturdays, but Monday through Thursday, be during the day.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about the weekend. I don't know how Dave would feel about me using like comp time on the weekend. I don't mind doing that. I love being outside. So I would be okay with doing a Saturday. That's fine with me.
home time.
Yeah, but we get comp time, so it's okay with me if it's okay with Dave. It's what I have to do.
Yeah, if it's during the week for me, it's definitely either a Monday or a Friday, and then weekends. It'd have to be
So could we tentatively look at the 29th?
Fridays and Saturdays, football.
I was gonna say, lady complaining about being out in cold weather is gonna be in snow pants in December at the game. I don't want to hear about it.
It's gonna be next week. It's gonna be cold.
Don't mess with Anna D's football.
Hey, Anna, I might suggest even one of those quick surveys that, we can get a feel for. They're simple and easy, certain days of the week, certain times to get a feel for everybody, and then even folks that aren't here tonight as well.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, Marilyn.
Yeah, they have those apps. I don't know what that was.
Yeah,
Doodle. You can do a doodle poll or something like
Yeah.
that.
doodle poll, yeah, do
They're
that.
simple.
And whoever's in for the most, whatever day it is, and that's the day. Put in a couple days and times.
Yep, they work well.
That sounds good. I can do that. Should I just focus on Fridays? Is that okay with everyone?
Depends.
I can
Give it
check
a
with-
whirl.
Is it a Friday football anymore?
Well,
You're heading out to State College or wherever you're going.
Oh, you're driving.
I can do an away weekend.
if you use that app, you basically, it would vet out, right? Nobody's gonna, you put in bars across Fridays or Mondays or Saturdays, and then everybody taps on which options are best for them. That's gonna vet out days that people can't do it anyway, so.
Right.
Dana D, Friday, December 13th, that should be open, right? Slow game that weekend?
That's right. Hopefully, Dennis, depends.
Are these site
Playoffs.
visits something you're going to want Jack and I at?
That's totally up to you. I will offer Jack to attend, but I'm sure he won't want to drive from Reading again. He already did that.
And I
once.
only mentioned myself just because I can't do any Fridays between now and the next meeting.
Okay. Do you think it's okay if you're not there?
Yeah, it's okay if I'm not there. It's just, if there are questions, I'd love to be able to answer them, but I can't do that if I'm not there. But obviously it's more important that the board gets on the ground to see the property, and hopefully in both Jack and my case, the applications sort of speak for themselves.
Yeah, I'll definitely get those out before we have the site visit scheduled.
And I'd reach out to the two entities and say, we're planning site visits. Do you have any issues? We're kind of looking at these dates, don't have anything specific, or do you want to call back on a specific, or are you okay that we do it in the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks?
Okay.
Just, I mean, if neither party says no issues, go out and look at it, then that's one less thing we have to factor in.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the date is going to be an issue from the landowner perspective. It's more of once a date is picked, if you could please let Jack and I know, and we'll make sure that the landowners are aware of it. And then also, if everybody has a chance to look at the applications, if questions do come up, you can send them to Anna, and then Anna could reach out to Jack and I with any questions that the board has about the applications.
Yep, and I can get back to anyone if there are questions I can't answer or that can't be answered through the application. Definitely. We'll get back to you.
So it's not going to be 3 to 4 inches of snow. It's only going to be like 1 inch overnight, right?
Gonna be wet.
Is that what they're saying now?
Yeah.
For my house, Dennis?
What?
For my house, last I looked, they said it was 3 to 6 or maybe
Wow.
up to 10 inches. But, I haven't looked in a couple hours, so maybe it changed.
That elevation change makes a difference.
Yeah.
I know.
Albrightsville still says 3 to 5.
Yeah, I already got snow piling up here up in the northern area of the county, so it was a good thing I didn't try to stay down there for the meeting today.
We need snow. Speaking on behalf of the PMVB. We need it.
That's right.
Yay, snow.
Get those
Right,
machines. Get those machines.
For the entire
going.
Commonwealth, we just need wetness.
Yep,
Exactly,
south
'cause
of the
we're in a
tunnel, it's
drought.
raining. We need it.
We surely do.
So, all right, so we'll look for a poll, Anna, and the applications to kind of review in advance of whomever can participate in the site visits. And is that everything related to the applications?
I think so, yes. If no one
All
has
righty.
else. I'm all
Is
good.
there any other further business?
That was mine. That was my business.
Thanks for
I don't
sharing.
think so. Happy to do it. Sorry, I had to do it virtually as well.
No worries.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All right.
Second,
Who was
Second.
that?
All right. All in favor?
Dave
Dave.
seconded.
Okay, sorry, who gave the motion? Dave first?
No, second,
Sarah.
Sarah first? Dave second.
Dave seconded.
All right.
Okay,
All
thank
in
you.
favor?
I'm sorry.
Aye. All righty. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good
Yeah.
job. Good job, folks. Thank you.
All right,
Happy
thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanksgiving,
Well
all.
done.
Happy Thanksgiving.